Great. So what Rosa and I did was we looked at this in several ways. We wanted to talk to you about what our funders require in terms of outputs, so numbers of things we have to do, and outcomes, and how we're looking at categorizing the outcomes, which is employment and education. And internally, Rose is going to show you how we sort of capture what that looks like. We take a wider view and then we give IRCC the big number. The middle portion, Rosa is going to talk about, though, the things that are really important to the things that we drive. Mentee confidence, mentee ability to search for jobs, mentee intercultural competency enhancements, and then mentor intercultural competency enhancements. And some independent research we had done by a professor at Mount Royal University here in Calgary. And then the third is Rosa's forte, talking about learning and development and what it really means to an organization and how important it is and how we all do it. We're just trying to make it a bit more intentional in the work that we do. So I'm going to go see if I can get fixed, and I'll have Rosa take over. You're in capable hands. Rosa. Just let me do a quick introduction of Rosa. Rosa's been with us for about 5 or 6 years. Unbelievable breadth of experience in working with newcomer professionals for many, many years, and is a real specialist in terms of learning, development, and implementation of those learnings. So Rosa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, I don't want you to get fixed.
Okay, thank you for having me working a little bit more on this piece and sharing with you what evaluating mentorship success means or has meant for CRIEC. So on one hand is the activity and outcome targets set up by the government and how we have articulated them. The studies we had for the services we provide from external.
Hi Leo, it's Bruce here. How are you?
Hello, Bruce.
Hey, I'm in the office and then I'll...
Okay, so this, going back, the mentor and mentee benefits, receiving the service of mentorship, and the learning and implementation that has happened within the organization to reach the outcomes where we are now. So this is what our funders require from us, that we have provide certain number of clients should be served. So the activities we have to organize during an administrative year are information and orientation, one-on-one, 130 clients, employment-related services, specifically mentor, the same number of clients, employment-related services, now organizing networking opportunities, again, 130 networking opportunities. I mean, I haven't had the chance to, probably this is a language, so it's not that we will organize 130, it's 130 mentees participating in networking opportunities. And number 4, again, networking opportunities that are more what we also have as a connector or coffee meeting, 90 matches. So in an administrative year, this is the number that we are supposed to do in a year for April 2020, March 2021. And in terms of outcomes, that's more important, the impact of the services on clients. Our funders require that 60% of those clients, after 3 or 6 months of having received the service, that is mentorship, they secure employment, whether it is in their professional field, related field, or new chosen field, based on their education, experience, training, and career aspirations, or entry-level job in the client's field, related field, new chosen field, again, with an emphasis based on education, experience, training, and career aspirations. So this is one of the targets, whether it's employment or for some other mentees that have to still do an accreditation and decide to follow an appropriate educational path. So by educational path, it is retraining in their field, related field, new chosen field, based on what they bring to the table, or engaging in a license process. So CRIEC has a specific group that is international trained lawyers. And that process takes, in realistic terms, around 2 or 3 years. So that also we are accountable for that. Or if a client goes into advanced education in their field, related field, chosen field. So when we are looking at what our funders require is to do the number of activities that are in our contract and reach this target. Despite that 2020 has been a very unexpected year for everyone, we're already more than 130 clients. We are about 230 who have been matched. And the same goes for not 200 and people who have got jobs in the fields, but probably 100, yes. So that is good. That tells a lot about how we have worked and how we have reached what our funders require. So the second point that matches this mentoring evaluation effectiveness, it is external evaluators. I think it was 2017, 2018, Dr. Leah Hamilton and a group of people from Mount Royal University partnered with us, and they did a study on the benefits, mentorship as a strategy, an examination of the outcomes of CRIEC's mentorship strategy. So in their study, they tried to see how these benefits, organized in 3 big categories: professional benefits, psychosocial benefits, and intercultural understanding, the impact of those 3 big areas in the mentees and mentors we had. So by professional benefits, they were looking for job search self-efficacy, which means how confident mentees are in looking for jobs, and job search behaviors. If they are, savvy enough to customize their resumes, networking, what else? Interviewing, elevator pitch, etc., etc. And there's psychosocial benefits. What was the relationship satisfaction in these professional relationships, mentor-mentee, and the relationship learning, how much each of them learned, and the intercultural understanding. So this study was a 2-year-long study, and this is what we got. So on the side of mentees, the professional benefits were, it increased the job search self-efficacy. So people who land here, sometimes they lose their confidence and they have trouble collecting themselves again, collecting their identity, their professional identity. So being matched with a mentor helped a lot in building that confidence. And the same for job search behaviors, because mentees would learn this from their mentors, or they will sharpen what they had.
Exactly. Rosa, can you go back to that slide
Yes,
for
yes.
1 second? So in everyday terms, what self-efficacy is just some fancy word that I think the researchers use, but it just means that you're ready. You are ready to take control of your own career path, and you're ready to go forward. So one of the ways that Rosa and I came about this was early work we had done with international medical graduates. And we were asked to work with AIMGA, which is the Alberta Association of International Medical Grads, on an alternative career path planning set of workshops. And we realized that the majority of the time was going to be spent getting the clients to a point where they felt they could go forward. So as Rosa said, they're reaching a platform, and the researchers call that self-efficacy, where now you're confident enough to go forward. You stop looking backwards, you stop looking sideways, you're going to go forwards. You have to get to that point before any of the job search strategies that you've been discussing with the mentee are then able to put into positive behavior. So you're talking about networking, you're talking about reaching out, you're talking about doing due diligence for job postings. What the researchers have told us, and what Rosa and I realized really when we were working with the international medical grads, is absolutely true. Until they reach that platform where the self-efficacy is there, meaning they're confident to take control of their own career path, a lot of information was just going in one ear and going out the other ear constantly. And so from a mentoring program perspective, we wanted to know that. So it's a way of understanding where mentees are at. And this is not being judgmental. It just means that maybe Jimmy or Susan are not yet ready for a mentoring partnership, and that's okay. And so that's sort of how those two things come together. And then the job behaviors are, you're now positively getting to that next step where you're writing a better resume, you're sending it out, you're feeling way more confident about it. You're saying, Rosa, can we do a job interview prep? I'm ready to rock and roll now. I got a job interview tomorrow. So that's how those two things come together. Sorry.
Rosa, could I just ask, just
Sure.
understanding the numbers here. So is this the mean increase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From beginning to end? Okay.
Yeah. So the researchers tell us that these are significant. So we can share we can share the entire research with you. I looked at it. I wasn't quite sure what this meant. Is it a Steinine scale? In which case it barely is a pass. And they said, no. These are significant outcomes. So it made us feel great that we were on the right path.
Great. Thanks.
The second part that Leah checked was the psychosocial benefits of having a mentor. And again, the mean shows that the relationship satisfaction increased the same as the learning. And this adds to the previous factors, that you feel confident on starting your job search in your new setting. You start taking up new job search behaviors, and that there is satisfaction in doing that. And this comes from the learning, from the professional relationship you have with your mentor.
Exactly. And one of the positive benefits that we saw about this is that when we've done some post-mentoring downloads that Rosa will talk a bit about later, because Rosa really put a great program together. One of the things that mentees told us is that, you know what, I can now identify a potential mentor for myself going forward. I can take control of my own life. I don't need an organization to tell me how to find a mentor now, because I have understood what a good mentor looks like, sounds like, acts like, feels like. And so, this is what the researchers told us was in their experience from the literature as well, that relationship satisfaction and relationship learning is almost like muscle memory. Now they'll know what a mentor looks like down the road, and the mentees are now equipped to learn how to fish. Well, they have learned how to fish, and so now they can fish, and they don't need Doug and me and Rosa and Azume and everybody else with them one step of the way. So thanks, Rosa.
And the last factor, intercultural understanding, that was 6 points, and that means a lot, because normally adults have been living in their own country, and the way they see the world, they bring it here. And some of them, they think it's continuation of that world, that they were already settled in their careers and now it's more career development. When in reality is first embracing your new setting and then learning their ways of doing things. And when you are an adult, that's harder. So this study was finished in 2018, and we can see still the effects, because in those times, mentees will land here after, so they will reach CRIEC after having been here 3-4 months. So now what we see is, hello, Rosa, I landed Saturday, and she's contacting me on Monday. and then they're still in quarantine, and they're still in that mood of, okay, so where is my job? Yes, or okay, so it's a continuation of life. And so this information is really useful because it allows, how do we call mentorship, mentoring coordinators, I mean, tune their career assessment, because it's not the same talking to somebody who's been here 5 days, is still, some of them still in culture shock, some of them still with a jet lag, that talking to somebody who's been here 8 months. And as the person says, yes, I want to be a lawyer. Yes, I have a transitional job and I'm studying for my exams. So that person, I mean, is readier than the one who's been here 5 days or even 2 days. Yeah. So this information is really valuable. And on the mentor outcomes, again, the 3 factors, from the 3 factors that were studied, the researchers show us focus on these 2 psychosocial benefits for the mentors, again, and the intercultural understanding. So mentors that come from different fields, some of them international trade professionals, some of them Canadians. I mean, they let us know that the partnership helped them a lot in understanding working with international talent, and that partnership also helped them learn, sharpen some skills like interviewing, like professional development areas, like networking. So this, for the mentor outcomes were more on those 2 areas, psychosocial benefits and intercultural understanding. So probably these 2 key factors for mentees, the job search efficacy and the job search behaviors, are key when we are working with them in helping their employment integration. Because if you are not confident enough to start the job search or to embrace new ways of doing job search, I mean, it's hard. But again, this is the pre-mentoring and the post-mentoring, and there was a significant increase. So apart from the intercultural understanding, these 2 factors are very useful, give us insights into how the mentorship becomes a really effective strategy.
Yeah, there was a really interesting side note back on this slide here. So oftentimes when you're talking to a client, to a mentee, before they've mentored, there really oftentimes isn't a firm understanding as to how difficult this pathway is going to be. And so one of the projects that Rosa and Alex did a wonderful job on was a project that the provincial government funded on a small a small mentoring project that dealt with future skills. And so one of the pre-mentoring questions was, how confident are you that you can search for future jobs? And how many future jobs do you think you can look for? And that you might qualify for. And so pre-mentoring, the surprising thing is that many of our mentees said, well, I can probably qualify for like 100 jobs. And we said, no, sort of narrow that down. They said about 20 or 30 jobs, I mean, easily, right? Post-mentoring, almost to a person, Rosa, they said to us, you know, in reality, I probably are good for about 5 or 6 jobs and my mentor helps me. So what would have been interesting is there might have been a disconnect between the value that somebody saw in their job search skills pre and post. So post definitely wasn't the number of jobs, but the quality of the information that they could discern, the way they could process that information, and the real access that they had. So sometimes what Rosa and I found was that narrowing down the information was actually what the mentee needed at that moment in time. And so that might have even skewed what some of these numbers look like. At the end of the day, Doug, just in working with people how much more confident that they are. What we really liked about the research that Leah did was there was an independent study that said beyond all the happy face surveys you do, I'm doing a survey 2 years after these people finished, and yeah, it confirms exactly where you guys thought things were at. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, so these were, okay, we think those are the key factors for employment integration when we are thinking of mentees. And this is a key important information when it comes to mentors, because mentors, I mean, they do this on volunteer basis. So based on the results, I mean, it helped us to really pitch our recruitment. It is, okay, this is a professional tool. This leads to professional development. And I mean, also that helped us to outreach employers, because some employers that are trying to develop that diversity and inclusion part of their organization find that by pitching this way to their personnel, I mean, they can have more volunteers. And that has, this study was great. I mean, and now it's too old. I mean, probably, my God, it's just 2 years after, but it looks like too old because things have changed dramatically. Something else on that part, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was the second part, the mentor and mentee benefits. Okay. And that's the sauce, learning and implementation, because how can CRIEC reach all these things? Well, it was an act of balance. Really, these two pictures depict that. An act of balance between running operations and trying to find time to reflect and see what things needed to be improved or how we could be responsive to our mentees' needs, or how the approach from our funders before was more on outputs, numbers, activities. And then the switch is now how we can be more mindful in reaching the outcomes. Not that we didn't reach outcomes before, but because funders wouldn't pay attention to those, we were not not tracking those, because now that we are accountable for activities, outputs, and outcomes impact, we are tracking outcomes, and it is wow. I mean, whatever we're getting is really wow, because not that because the market wasn't like this, it's just that we were not tracking. Right? We were more, oh yeah, they're asking for output. Okay, let's do that. And this was more the internal initiative that we were running in the search of how do we best respond to our mentees' needs. So an act of balance, I would say.
Exactly. You know, we were always tracking, and Rosa will go through the stuff that we're tracking. So we're always tracking the other things, the job search efficacy, the job search behavior, the psychosomatic, by constantly having conversations, group sessions, one-on-one interviews, etc. And I know Doug's group had a mandate to always count numbers in terms of who was getting employed. And we never had that until this year. So it's sort of an interesting thing for us. But when we went back into our notes, we were always at about that 65 to 70% ratio anyway. And in fact, we did some research on a group of about 200 mentees about 3 years later, and about 95% of people were working exactly in their field. And so the employment was there. We know, and we tried to push back because we were telling IRCC that mentoring is not a job thing. If you want people to get jobs, hire a bunch of job recruiters. That's the best. Mentoring is not a short-term fix. And so if you're thinking mentoring is a short-term fix, and then you're definitely misguided. And so we pushed back and we said mentoring is a long-term fix. You want to create a society that in the 2 years, 3 years, the 20 years down the road, you've got unbelievable talent working where they need to be working and where they want to be working. And so for us as well, a balance to say, okay, we can try to live with this, with this output, which is easy to meet, the outcomes, we know we're there. We still feel uncomfortable because mentoring is not a 3 to 6 month thing. That's not what it is. However, we're sort of stuck. One of our favorite fellows, Mark Cabbage, calls that feeding the beast. So you feed the funder. So the funder needs to be fed on a regular basis. So you feed the funder, and you try to impress the funder enough, but have constant conversations with them about what mentoring is really all about. So for us, that was that good internal learning. And so we were ready this year, thanks to working with Doug's group, thanks to the work that Rosa's been doing with learning and implementation constantly. We're in a good position, and we're exceeding both outputs and the outcomes.
Yeah, and the other picture it shows, okay, so it was more like everyone in the team playing to the thanks to the leader, playing in unison. And if one of the team members have to do the solo, okay, there it is. So it was finding that balance for the moment, feeding the beast, and then being and keep our mission there, and also building or relying on the team, because without the team, and the team CRIEC and the team Immigrant Employment Councils, so that is ERIEC, that is Halifax. So it has been a nice act of balance and a nice act of team learning at all levels. So this chart shows how we have evolved, where are we now, and something that we constantly come back. So CRIEC started with mentoring one-on-one. And as such, we use surveys at the beginning, surveys 1 month after they've been matched, at the 3rd month, 3 months after, 6 months after, interviews, if necessary, with mentees, mentors, focus groups. And so this is Mentoring 101, is the initiative, the tools we have used to evaluate, assess how this Mentoring 101 has been going on. And here is what, as a team, we have learned. Yeah, so by doing the surveys, interviews, focus groups, we have been able to respond to users' needs, whether these users were mentees or mentors. Because for mentoring to exist, we need the mentee and we need the mentor. So we've been able to do that. So for mentors, there is a special learning place too. That is the mentor learnings, mentor meetings, lunch and learn, and many other initiatives that is not here. But we've been able to respond to users' needs, and users, mentor and mentee. Also, thanks to those initiatives, we've been able to capture learnings. What else we can be doing, how we can engage mentors. Okay, what mentees need at this point. And so we have been able to capture learnings and to build organizational capacity. So I think that CRIEC is in a point that we can really offer our know-how on what mentoring is, or mentoring as a strategy, whether it is with other organizations or whether it is with employers. And we have already some few employers that have approached us, and they are in conversations inside the organization because they are ready to go for that initiative. And it's a good place to be. But again, it's based because we've been open to be learning from actions, from what we have done, the Mentoring 101. So this was not enough, because as we moved, we thought, oh, wow, 4 to 16 weeks is too long. What about, and of course, the conductor of the orchestra, he said, okay, let's do this. So we went by smart connections. So smart connections, by those we understand, asking professional organizations come and outreach or explain what their process is, or have employers invite us for their volunteer day, and we would go with 30 or 40 mentees, and we will develop there a networking where mentors, volunteers of that day, and our mentees would do interviewing or would get feedback on their resume. And so those are the smart connections. So the learning or the tools, we use scorecards. Mentees will get on a scorecard, so they will rotate meeting mentors and they will write down certain comments, and then that will be a tool for them for self-reflection. What areas do I need to improve? Most of them would get, oh, your communication is too broad, you need to narrow down, or your resume is too general. Again, you need to really customize it. Sometimes we used to use scorecards when that was in person, and then session surveys after the same thing, visiting employers. Mentees will get, okay, what did you get as feedback and how will that change the current way you're doing things? And that require them to think about and re-articulate what was the input they get from people in the field, and say, okay, well, I got this, and I after meeting 2 or 3 mentors in that session, I think I have to focus, I have to do this. And that was a nice way, I mean, without us telling them what they had to do. It was feedback got from people in their fields and from people, from employers. So this is what we used. Now that sessions, these smart connections are online, we use a Mentimeter, which is a tool at the end of the session. Mentees get that and they will provide us feedback. So what we learned from those smart connections? Well, it raised gap awareness in the services we were given. We realized, oh, we're not doing this, we have to do this. Identify areas of improvement for the team. Or also, wow, this person still thinks this way and this person is my client. So it gives us nice feedback on how I should approach this mentee and clarify their assumptions, or set up a coffee meeting with a mentor with a focus on that specific area. So the mentor, by sharing their experience, would help the client understand what they have to do differently. So smart connections, this year we have also done smart connections virtually. So I completely forgot. Yes, scorecards, session surveys, and now is this Mentimeter survey that is online.
So an example of this would be everybody can connect, your clients with an employer, but you really want to understand what's happening within that relationship. So Doug and I have been designing these smart connections for about a decade, and what they are is really, Rosa has a great expression for it. It's employer experiential learning. You get a number of your mentees, and they can be of all different sizes. You could have a small group of 5, you could have a group of 75. But the point is that they're connecting in a really engaging way with them, mentors for the afternoon who could be related to 1 or more employers in a very intentional setting. The employers for the day or employers for the afternoon are empowered to provide feedback. And so it's real feedback. So if you're doing, let's say, a speed interviewing session where each mentee is connecting with, let's say, 7 different mentors for the afternoon from that organization, the mentors for the afternoon are empowered to provide exact feedback. And as Rosa says, sometimes mentees never get feedback. And if a mentee is getting the same feedback 3 or 4 times, they recognize, oh, I guess my stories are too long. I must really sort of begin to narrow it in. So we try to stay away from surveys that say, was the food good? Was the room good? That stuff we can figure out. Somebody will tell us the food is terrible, Bruce, or, it's too cold in the room. Instead, what we want to know are, what are the takeaways? What do the mentees, what are they taking away? And when they reconnect with their mentors, or with their one-on-one mentors, or with their peer counselors, then they can share that information. And they can say, my stories are really too long. We have sometimes taken that information and decided, you know what, we're going to put on a story sharing workshop next month. And so for those who felt that their stories are too long, we're going to put together a workshop. Either we'll run it or we'll connect with an expert in our field and we'll sort of put it together. But very intentional learnings,
Yeah.
and mentors empowered to provide that feedback. Um, Rosa, just in the just thinking of some time, because we want to leave some questions. Did you want to go to the next slide, because the rest of it is so the rest of this great slide
Yeah.
is more different, other different ways that we want to capture
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll do that. So
Awesome. Thank
other
you.
initiatives, mentoring circles, the external evaluators, and the team learning. So this is where we are now, focusing on team learning, because that helps us really, I mean, from the doing, reflect what we're doing well as as providers of the service, what it's sinking in our clients. We had the meetings where we share those findings and how we, I mean, decide to do as a group some other activity, or just one activity that helps nail down that piece. So it is always action and reflection. Yes. So one will inform the other. Yes. Or it's for the more concrete, the doing, to the more abstract, the reflecting. And probably the first pictures explain the balance, because in your team or in a team, there is always somebody who is more of the doer. Let's do. No. Let's reflect. Either or is not the best solution. It's moving. And yes, this is what has been the center of the services we have provided. And this shows one of the strategies, how the team, because learning and implementation is team learning. I mean, by 2020, this was January 2020, we had already come out as a team on all these outputs, the strategies. And yesterday was nice to find, oh, wow, we've been doing this. I forgot completely about this. Yes, we've been doing this. That's the readiness, that's this. Oh, mentee partner collaboration, because it's always for us has been the mentor-mentee dichotomy plus other stakeholders. And by other stakeholders are employers, which are very important to tap on, and also the community. Yeah. So it was interesting to find, oh my God, we've been doing this and we produced. And yeah, so again, there was external evaluators that helped us to co-create, to develop our capacity. And that's why any person from, I mean, the staff at CRIEC will come up with this output. I mean, it's part of our language.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about that, Rosa, could you go back to just, yeah, awesome, thank you. So this sits on top of the IRCC's own project logic model. So IRCC talks about immediate outcomes, intermediate outcomes, and ultimate outcomes. Immediate outcomes are all learning. What are people learning today? So you're learning skills, connections, you're learning new tools. Intermediate outcomes is you're starting to use those tools. So now you're out, you're in the job market, you're reconfiguring, you're recalibrating what you're going to be doing, but you're active and you're doing some things. And then the ultimate outcomes are the jobs. And so when we say that IRCC jumps directly into ultimate outcomes, that's what they're doing in a sense. But internally at all good mentoring programs like ERIEC, CRIEC, IECBC, we're focusing on making sure the outputs are good. We understand what all the sessions are. We're constantly learning. And then we're plugging into our own project logic model of what are the immediate outcomes, what are the intermediate, and what are the ultimate. So we've taken what we did and do and want to do when we superimpose it on top of the IRCC's own project logic model. We use an outside source to do this. A group got some funding from the J.W. McConnell Foundation out of Montreal, and they came in and spent some time with us. So that's an awesome chart, Rosa. Thanks for including.
Oh yeah, I know. Finding this yesterday. Oh my God, we did. I think COVID erased many things from my brain.
Yeah.
So, in short, what mentorship, evaluating mentorship as a successful strategy has meant for CRIEC is the balance, trying to align the mission and the mentoring delivery. And despite, I mean, if our funders focus on the ultimate outcome, which is not realistic, this has been, I mean, that has been the balance of aligning our mission and the beast, the mentoring delivery. Also been intentional in implementing effective mentoring activities, not just implementing any activity for the sake of the activity, but okay, what our mentees will gain from this. Yeah, so we've been intentional all the time, fostering team learning to ensure outcomes are the goal of mentoring. So it's not the number of people I match, but it's the number of people that I match, because they are the ones that will get the jobs, and how CRIEC will be offering and adding value through the activities. So that person that joins the mentoring really gets a job in their field, related field, or career path. We have iterated a lot, yeah? So that is light of implementations, we have iterated a lot. But with this principle in mind, that these actions of iterating have been feeding, thanks to reflecting, feeding our learning. So we have learned a lot from initiatives. As a small organization, we have a strive for a culture that embraces diversity. Each member of the team brings a different strength, and we rely on that. And that is really great, because each person is part of the orchestra and will be a solo. And and this is a process. I mean, it's always striving for that. And lifelong learning. Yes, because lifelong learning is the only key to deal with change and to be responsive and really make mentoring an effective strategy. And we always pay attention to what else has to be done. Okay. Oh, 11 o'clock, if there are questions.
Awesome job, Rosa. Wonderful.
Yeah, would you be willing to stop sharing screen just so we can see each other
Yes, there we are.
more warmly, and Annette's cat as well. So
Yeah, nice. The cat. So just to give you an example of how Rosa thinks so beautifully, I'd be up in Edmonton on a Friday night watching my kid play varsity hockey for Concordia. I might have talked to Doug at about 6 just to yammer on to see what he's doing that weekend. Rosa gives me a call 6:30 just before puck drop. She says, I've been reading something from the Journal of Ireland University on evaluation. Can we talk about it? And I'd say, yep. So I said, send me some links. Rosa's constantly 24/7 thinking about the work we do. We need, Rosa plays such a vital role, but as Rosa pointed out, you can't have one person thinking about this. It's got to be a team effort. And so what Rosa has done, she's inspired the rest of the team to be as excited, although no one's maybe as excited as Rosa can get about some of this stuff. So rather than new learning going out the door as soon as the door opens, it stays in the room. And Rosa identifies it, and she says, we got to talk about this, and it sort of brings us back. So such a vital role in terms of what we do. So amazing. Thank you, Rosa, for all you do. So questions, comments on any of this stuff? Cheryl, are we good till about 11:10-ish?
Yeah, our official time is till 11:15.
Okay.
We
Okay,
always kind of closed a bit early, but with our tech delay,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, well, there was multiple things, and that's just how that goes.
Okay, great.
I mean, yeah, I just want to say, Rosa, it's a work of beauty. I used to be a credentialed evaluator with the Canadian Evaluation Society. So to see a mature kind of learning and development, with all of the monitoring and thing in place, it's beautiful. So I'm as excited for you as you are.
Yeah. And I must say, it has taken a bit of time for us to get to this point. coming out of the gate, we weren't here. You know, Doug's always done some amazing things in terms of outputs and outcomes. And we because we weren't pushed, we sort of developed in a slightly different way. Over the last 2 years, we were pushed a little bit more. And thanks to the work that Doug has done at ERIEC, we were able to recalibrate quite quickly. But what was interesting is that we then were able to bring Rosa's 5 years and let's say my 10 years of this evaluation thinking into what we do. And the rest of the team bought in holus bolus. So it's been a real team effort in terms of what we look at. Yeah.
Going to add, and you know, as Cheryl said, you know, it's what you presented today, Rosa and Bruce, is, you know, it's a pretty polished and very sophisticated, you know, sort of understanding of these kinds of things that we're measuring. And I just want to reassure, especially our guests from Fort McMurray, that don't get too daunted by what I mean, because to me, I mean, I'm looking at it, and Cheryl, we're looking at it, and that we're like, you know, we get this. This is a language we're pretty used to after 12 years of doing this work. For you folks, it might be a little bit daunting, and it might, you go, holy crap, is this really what we're doing? And you know, and you will get there. You'll get to those understandings. And I think one of the challenges that Bruce and I, when we talked about this session today, was, and Cheryl as well, like, how do we present this information in, as I like to use the word, Zen-like fashion? You know, like it needs to be simplistic for you guys too, not because of your lack of understanding, but this is new to you. And so I think what Rosa showed us in that matrix, that's a lot of content in there. And I'm looking at it and going, man, if it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that, I'd be like, I quit. But that took a lot of years to get to.
It did.
But there is in that information some really good gems and some good sort of essences, if you will, of what we do. And keep that in mind when you're running your programs. Like, and it'll be more iterative, and it'll be a little bit more pedantic than what CRIEC has done. I mean, that's, again, like I say, a lot of years of history and work. So keep in mind,
Doug, if I could just pick up, like Stella had typed in the chat, you know, the question of, there's lots of tools to go, and sort of from, you know, the perspectives here, what are some good simple ones to start with? And I'll just name that because we're in a project and a pilot, you know, you're working with the evaluator we have around evaluating outcomes in support of what we need to do with the project. There's some really basic, you know, strategies that designs using around, you know, pre-survey forms and post-survey forms. That's often a really good place to start, is just to identify some questions you want to know what's changed. And the way that, you know, our colleague from Doha from Pivotal Research, you know, they've put together questions that look at some of the things that could be interesting about to change. But it's one way to strip back to, you know, where do we want to start with pieces. And Rosa's work, like, you know, does a really great job of the really practical bit, you know, finding jobs, getting into education, like whatever the next step is, and how they've been supported. But I think looking at some of the things like, you know, do I feel more connected to this community? Do I feel like I actually have some capacity to find my next network connection, or to find, you know, so that I can go and do that for myself past the program?
I mean, yesterday I asked Bruce about the audience, because I knew there was, I mean, if I have to start, that's too much, because that's a summary of 10 years or 11 years, Bruce, of work. And no, I mean, if you are starting, first thing, okay, start from where you are. What you can learn from CRIEC is that action will lead to reflection. So every year there will be something else to change. Otherwise, it will be monotonous, yes, and it will be boring. So no, and if you are in a different community, I mean, it's totally different community from Edmonton and from Calgary, yes? Yeah. So who knows that in your community, the needs for mentoring are more on certain kind of, I don't know, you get funding for jobs, you get funding for integration, you get funding for, I have no idea. So it is starting looking at yourself first and your context, and then using our experience, because do you have tools? Yes, we have tools, but those, I mean, and with Bruce, we have this philosophy, we never use the same thing twice because you finish, oh my God, that has to change. Yeah, so every time we are doing something with mentees, oh, here it is the PowerPoint, because I'm not repeating the same story. But so that's the learning you need to have. Okay, first believe in yourself, your self-efficiency, I can do it. The good thing, I have a team. So the learning team is us. Yeah. Yes, that we can share that experience. And there is also a person in the evaluation. So it's learning from CRIEC, is learning from ERIEC, is learning from all the people here. So so that represents 11 years of work, and we don't know it yet. I mean, because every time is different. And yes, every time is different.
Exactly. As an example, if we had just relied on surveys to sort of move the ball forward, Rosa and I had a moment, again, working with the international medical grads, and we decided we were going to do this through story sharing. So we met every Tuesday night as a group. One woman told a story, great story about why she became a doctor and what she wanted to do here in Canada, what she was doing in Canada. But when she was telling it, she was all closed. She was physically closed in like this. 6 weeks later, she faced a square on, and she's proudly said, this is what I'm doing in Canada. And Rosa and I talked to her later over coffee, and she said, that was the moment I hit that platform of self-advocacy. She didn't use those words, but Rosa and I are thinking, so what it took was just us meeting with somebody over time and noting all the different changes that we were seeing. And so we realized, okay, surveys are pretty flat. They're two-dimensional, one-on-one interviews. But you're able to do that if your group is small. As Rosa said, everything is very contextual. If you want to do 15 matches this year, you've got time to really spend with mentees and mentors and just having conversations with them and really, really sensing stuff. I mean, Doug and Cheryl and Rosa and I, we love talking about this stuff. And I'm going to open it up. If anybody on the screen wants to talk to Rosa and I to help set up some basic stuff or talk to Doug and Cheryl, please reach out. This is why we're having these boot camps, to say, as Doug Ruggie pointed out, it's like 11 years of stuff going in. You should have seen me and Doug in our first year. We're thinking, does anybody even want to get mentored? Yeah. Don't you like us, right? I mean, those are the kind of surveys. And then finally, over time, people are saying, I'm interested in this. And to Rosa's point, find out, what are people interested in your community? What do they want to get out of your mentoring? Do they want a job? Do they want community connection? Do they want to just meet some friends? Do they want to, and then sort of build from there.
And typically of course, mentees, they want a job, right? I mean, that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear that forever and ever. And of course, that's that sort of visceral, immediate need that they have. And that's what they see, the purpose of this mentorship or connection or whatever. But it's a little bit of an education process for them too, to understand too, that this is not just about getting a job, but it's about empowerment. And I think in the presentation today, you saw some of these like psychosocial, like there's people studied this stuff. I mean, we know anecdotally, people feel more confident. We see that in their faces and postures and behavior. We see that. but you, like in the case of CRIEC, they actually studied it. They've actually, which is great. I mean, because now there's people, one of the things that we always say is, did we move the needle for people? Like when we move the needle, did it get better for people as a result of our intervention?
Yeah.
And so sometimes we know that anecdotally, sometimes we know that through a survey, but I think being not afraid and being self-critical about the stuff that we do, I think has, like Rosa said, we get bored if we just did the same thing over and over again. And so we're very critical about the stuff that we do. Can we make it better? And as Rosa said, work as a team, do that internally at staff meetings, do that annually at strategic planning sessions. You've got lots of material as you go through the next weeks, months, and a year. You will have lots of information to put into strategic planning, strategic design. So yeah, you can't, surveys are good. I mean, and asking questions of people in meetings is great. So you got input.
And we have the surveys that we created for the website, which we branded for you already in Fort McMurray, the pre, post, and follow-up surveys for you to use. And I think you also have them in Word, so you can keep evolving and changing them and not being like, just take them and own them. But it is a start. So it's just a thing.
Yeah, and you know, at the beginning, informal camera, phone, video, you know, just like what I'm looking for, what, you know, what I'm nervous about, and then checking in, you know, a month later or 3 months later, depending on how long, that can really do a nice informal capture and also provide the voice for that. The thing I'll mention, and I do need to follow up with Adeline after this, as part of this project, we've working with a videographer, you know, because your timeline has been now to come up and do some work to interview people on your team, mentors and mentees, so that we'll get a capture of some of those voices, and that'll be an asset for you as well to kind of go forward. It's really powerful, right? And I'll forward links to you. We were able to do that with the Lethbridge pilot just because they went earlier, and it's been so great to use those because people can see it. It gets really tangible.
Yeah.
And so you kind of need a little bit of the numbers bit and a little bit of the story bit, and then that helps build that story of, you know, why mentorship's helpful.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, with that, Rosa and I would like to say thank you so much for having
Thank
us
you.
here. We're actually running into a team meeting where we'll be bragging about meeting all of you guys. But, you know, honestly, connect with Rosa at CRIEC.ca, Bruce at
Yeah.
CRIEC.ca. Please do. Connect with Doug, connect with Cheryl, with the net. We're here to help. That's our mission in life, is to support you in everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Of course, there's,
Yeah, thanks so much, Bruce and Rosa, for putting that
Awesome.
together. And sorry, Randall, we didn't acknowledge you briefly at the beginning. Thanks for joining with us. I'll just mention that our next and final in the series boot camp session is on March 5th, and the registration link is there if you're not already registered. As always, please share that. But yeah, all of the resources that we talk about, they're freely available on our albertamentorship.ca website. We're continuing to add resources. Thanks so much to Annette for doing all of that incredible writing. And we also have a YouTube channel, which you will be able to find easily because we've got like a zillion connections from.
Put a link in the chat too.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, conscious of people's time, happy to stay on for more conversations and questions, but I'm going to just close the recording here.